Hi, Emmanuel Slovic here. Have you ever struggled playing the guitar? If you're anything like me, then the answer is probably yes. With this 2-week intensive course, what I hope to bring is some awareness about foundational aspects of guitar playing, foundational skills, building blocks, as it were, of classical guitar technique. I love the image of Legos, right? Because one, they're super playful, happy times as a child. Two is you have these units, these basic units, pieces with which you can build almost any structure. And in a way, that's kind of how I visualize guitar technique. That you have, a limited amount of movements, of actions that you perform with your body, which combined in different ways can be used to create different types of music, right? So I don't really think there's such a thing as, shouldn't be, hopefully, such hard music, but there is very complex music in that it requires you to do several different things at once. Let's say something which requires string crossing at the same time as a stretch and an awkward shift and so on. So the goal for me when I start my day is to make sure that each one of my little Lego blocks, is perfectly polished or shaped, so that whatever I build with it doesn't end up being too wonky, hopefully. If one idea that I'm fascinated by is how Lego blocks are so indestructible, something which is super evident if you've ever stepped on one. And I like to think that my guitar chops, my basic units of technique should be equally indestructible, hopefully, in the best of cases. So I want to be polishing that basic unit, the very simplest actions that we need to perform on the guitar. One final thought is that, before we get into the exercises, is that there are many books on guitar technique. And a lot of them are hundreds of pages long and have, dozens and dozens or hundreds of exercises trying to cover every single combination possible of, scenarios where you need to play on the guitar. But rather than that, I'd rather like the other side of the spectrum, which synthesizes things, which finds the most essential core movements from which other, complexities stem. And that's quite the approach that we're going to be taking here. Today, for this first of our 2 weeks, the first week assignment will include 6 exercises for you to incorporate into your warm-up. And they're not just any exercises, they're not entirely arbitrary. They're things I've picked up, sometimes adjusted a little bit from different teachers, which help me feel like I'm feeding each one of these little plants, each one of these little essential movements on the guitar. And there are probably many more, I know there are more, which won't be included here. But these are just some crucial things that I feel if I do them every day, and I have been doing them every day, they will improve the level of my playing. So here we go. Without further ado, we're going to look at 6 exercises for you to practice this first week. If you have any questions, if anything is unclear, or you feel I've given something for granted, which inevitably will happen, which you would like to know a little bit more about, feel free to write it in the thread, post a video with your question, or just wait until our check-in session on Thursday, I believe, so that we can have a one-to-one, we'll be as a group, but I can hopefully give you some more one-to-one attention. And yeah, let's look then at exercise number 1. For me, this is almost the most basic thing you can do on a guitar is just play an open string, right? So the way I like to start doing it is as soon as I have my nails filed, I'm comfortable, no excess tension. So I just play with one finger on one string, usually the second, because it gives me the challenge of having to avoid the first string. Not a big challenge, but anyways, there it is. So I'll play rest stroke, and I have another camera for you, I believe. Let's see if we can get it in focus. I'll play rest stroke, I'll play free stroke, I'll play rest stroke, and free stroke. Again, this is on the second string. Just make sure that we avoid hitting the first string accidentally like that. So. And my premises are not very many, but they're quite important. Trying not to move the right hand excessively, if at all, hopefully. So you see it's pretty still whether it's free stroke or whether it's a rest stroke. Then the sound quality and the volume should be similar, and the feel should be more or less similar. We shouldn't feel like one is a huge amount of effort more than the other. Then I can switch fingers, same string maybe, middle finger, and so on. Then the A finger, and that's basically it. You know, some people like to think of this as a meditation as well. You just kind of find some kind of synchrony between your intention and the execution. And I guess it's really simple, but it's really, really, really basic. And what I found in the past is that if my nail was too long or too short, that the position might change between each stroke. I might end up doing something like this for the rest stroke and free stroke, rest stroke, free stroke. So I want to try to avoid that. I want to try to have just one single position. Depending how your fingers are shaped, you might allow your phalanx, your tip joint to maybe bend a little bit, just ever so slightly, to let the nail through, and then maybe not when it's free stroke. Or some people don't need it at all. Everyone's a little different. I've heard both cases, and that's it. So if you do that for a few minutes, then you will have started warming up. You can play a little bit with the thumb as well, maybe free stroke, rest stroke. There we go. If you're feeling like you want to do a little variation of this, which is also a very essential movement, and it adds just a tiny degree of complexity, is two fingers. So you go maybe M-I, M-I, M-I. If you're feeling confident, maybe a little faster. And again, aiming for stability in the right hand. I realize this is not in focus. Maybe you switch it around, so it's I-M. If one is harder than the other, maybe you can spend more time on that one. You can maybe go A-M, A-M, M-A, M-A, and then I-A, maybe, or A-I. Nothing to do with ChatGPT. And so on. And that's another little part of the warm-up. And we spent, maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes or so doing this. And these are really so crucial. I remember the time when, I was a proper guitar student, and I still found difficulty with this. Like, one finger was a little more awkward than the other. And it's really nice to spend time doing absolute basics, giving yourself permission to just explore the feeling and so on. So that's our exercise number 1. I'll try not to take as long with the following ones, but number 2 is pretty simple. It's apoyando only. So we've already played apoyandos, right? But now we're gonna alternate apoyando, maybe 4 on each string, and maybe only the first 3 strings to keep it succinct. Then I'm playing quite quietly, just to get the gist, and then I'll try again without covering my right hand. So I am. The reason I start with I going down and M going up is to avoid the string crossing, okay? If you don't really know what that is, then don't worry too much. You can just start with I going down. I am. Of course, at whatever speed you feel absolute control over. You can then, similarly to the previous exercise, go M-A, 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 M-A. Just use different combinations of fingers. This one might feel a little more awkward, which is fine. You just practice it a little bit more. Without covering my hand this time. And then you can go IA. So that's exercise number 2. Apoyando is important even if you don't play blazing fast fortissimo scales, right? It's always good to be able to do apoyandos because sometimes you want to just highlight some notes, and there's nothing better to be able to convey musical ideas than have a specific technical tool for that, right? So if I have a scale, and I have one note that I really want to highlight, like that one. Not really a scale, it's like a little passage. What better than playing apoyando on that note I want to highlight? So, you know, these things are good to practice, even if you use them sparingly. They're quite crucial things to be able to do. Exercise number 3, perhaps one of my favorite, is what I call maybe pseudo slurs or quasi slurs. And you'll see why in a moment, but I'll start with descending slurs in the left hand, and I'll turn this off so as not to distract you. So I start with 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And what you might notice, aside from the fact that I'm not playing at all with my right hand, I'm just focusing on the left hand. You might notice, if you were to look this way, is that I'm not playing the slur in the usual way, which is almost apoyando, as it's called, apoyando slur, where you release sideways, but a slur where you release upwards in a 90-degree angle, so perpendicularly to the fingerboard. And the reason I like this so much is because it's, again, like the most basic movement you can do with the left hand on the guitar. Just as we were playing open strings with the right hand, this is also one of the most basic things you can do on the guitar, alternate between 2 fingers, right? And I always like to, you know, add some little reflection, some little goal when I do a little exercise. So here, what I'm thinking of is how much weight, so to speak, each finger has. So let's say, because I'm just warming up, I'm playing, this one has 50% of energy or weight, and this one, we'll call it a passive finger. So maybe this is the active one, and this might be the passive one. And the passive one will have maybe 10 or 5% effort. So really very, very light, just basically touching the string like a feather. So what happens is I go 50%, and that transfers over to 1. 2 transfers over to 1, and 2 transfers over to 1, and then I go back. And then I can repeat this as many times as you wish. Maybe you can do 2 cycles, like this, and then you can change to a different permutation. Whenever you have, you know, 2 fingers, or, you know, pairs of fingers on the left hand, there are 6 possible combinations: 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 1 and 3, 2 and 4, and 1 and 4, right? So you'll go through all of these, maybe 3, 2, 3, 2, and again, making sure that your finger is lifting perpendicularly off the string, that it's hitting a nice spot on the finger, which is not too close to the nail or not too close to the, you know, to the really fleshy part, somewhere really ideal, really optimal. And you're trying to achieve a really direct movement, very simple, direct, snappy movement, right? It's not from far away, not at all. We want to be economical, but it needs to be nice and snappy and direct, almost like a little electric shock. So it's shriek, shriek, you know, as quick as you can manage. The movement is quick, not the rhythm. So I can play this at a very slow rhythm, but trying to make the movements as snappy as possible. Okay, then 3, 1, and then 4, 2. Whoops, that one missed, so I'll do that again until I'm really happy with it. Yep. And so on, and then 4, 1. And you'll notice that my hand is pretty stable. The fingers are doing all of the movement. Shoulder is nice and relaxed. The elbow is just hanging. The wrist is nice and relaxed. No weird angles, not too much this way, not too much that way, or this way or that way, or anything too extreme. You just almost just let your hand reach here and imagine it's almost hanging from your fingertips there. Okay, not too much like a violinist, not too much this way. And it's a little more about how it feels than how it looks, but there we go. Okay, so with those things in mind, you will have practiced your downward slurs, your descending slurs. You can also do them ascending. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then again, you have your 6 permutations. So you can go 2, 3, 2, 3. I'll skip through a few. 3, 4, 3, 4, then 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 2, 4, 2, 4, and then 1, 4, 1, 4. You know, as many repetitions as you need to feel comfortable. So again, this is some of the most basic movements you can do with the left hand. And even if you're not playing actual slurs, this is the kind of action that your left hand, that ideally you want your left hand to have when you play your pieces or anything. You want them to move, you know, really nice and economically, very smoothly, very accurately, with a great degree of speed, you know, a lot of relaxation. So you're teaching your fingers really, really good habits here. All right, if we move on to chromatic scales, we can start adding a bit more complexity. Combination of exercise number 2, the apoyando, this, and a mixture also of left hand exercises where we're going to go 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1 across the first 3 strings. We don't need to overdo it. I don't usually go across all strings. Just go like this and then up. It's a little bit of a warm-up, remember, so I don't need to be exhaustive. I just need to give my body some hints, you know, some pushes in the right direction to practice these little movements and ingrain these good habits. I also don't want my warm-up session to last an hour necessarily. I want it to be something manageable, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, which I can still have time left for to enjoy my pieces and my repertoire. So here we go. I go 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. And this a similar deal to the previous exercise. We're going to think of active and passive fingers. So when I go 4, 3, 2, 1, there's only going to be one active finger at a time. So here it's going to be 4. This is going to be my 50, 60%. These 3 are going to be as passive as I can manage, you know, nice and floaty. I'd like to think that if someone were to come and pull one of these fingers, they'd be able to do so rather easily. The 3 is sometimes the exception. It's a little more engaged with 4, but, you know, as far as you can manage, nice and relaxed. Only this one is really pressing down. So 4, and then weight transfers, and this one is the active finger, this one, and this one. Now you need to pay attention, because instead of going 4, 3, 2, 1, one finger at a time, what I'm going to do is prepare a group of fingers. I'm going to go 4, 3, 2, 1. So I put all 4 fingers down. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I hold 1 there, and I lightly prepare 2, 3, 4. 4 becomes the active finger. Weight transfers from 1 to 4. Then 1 hops over. 3, 2, 1. Now prepare 4, hop over, 3, 2, 1. You go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on. And that's the deal. So you can do that 1, 2 with I am all the way. So and if you're comfortable, you can speed it up. If you're not, you slow it down. The main thing is that it's even, equal, you're not rushing. And if I'm playing a little softly, it's for 2 reasons. One is we're just warming up. We don't need to go crazy. Second, it's a little bit late here, so I don't want to wake anyone up, but I'll try to demonstrate the next thing that's on my mind is grouping. I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I can go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And what's cool about grouping as 3, one more degree of complexity, is that the accentuation between these 2 fingers changes. I go I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. So there we go. That's a cool little thing you can add. Shifting is our 5th exercise. Shifting is important because we do so much shifting on the guitar, obviously. We need to move around, but how we move around is critical. There's such a thing as jumping, which means that if I'm pressing a note, you know, to get to this note up here, I'm going to lift my finger off the string, move over here, and then put my finger down. The issue with that is twofold. One is that there's no legato, there's no connection. So there's actually a gap, or in the worst of cases, the open string makes a noise when you lift the finger, something like this. Right, if you're not careful. And the second issue is also a lack of or a decrease in confidence, technical security, so to speak. It's more likely that you might not hit the note. So what I like to think about is shifting as opposed to jumping. And this means having a guide finger which retains contact with the string. It's a little bit like rails. You know, if you have a train going on rails, right, it shouldn't, hopefully, derail unless something really unexpected happens, which can happen on guitar as well. So even if you're shifting, something might happen, but it's most likely to be much, much safer than jumping. So instead of going like this, lifting the finger off the string and then going over here, what I would do is I would play D, then just release a bit of the pressure, lightly keep contact with the string, shift, and then press down. So you get something like this, which feels a lot more secure than jumping and a lot cleaner. In fact, here, yeah, I almost didn't make it and I can feel that uncertainty. I'm not sure I'm gonna make it. Another thing you can do is if you're playing vocal music, you want to play legato, you can, this allows you to play some portamento. So it's so crucial for lyrical playing. Now a little exercise, the actual exercise for shifting, exercise 5, would be a tiny little E minor scale. I just, made this up. You can make up your own one if you want. I would go something like this. So in this case, my guide finger is 1. So if I show you from around here, if I were to play, I'll try to play, try my best. 1 here keeps contact with the string and keeps contact going down. Okay, and you notice my thumb lifts very gently, whoops, right before the shift. So there's no added friction, right? So then, as opposed to jumping, which has a cut and less security, I get this with shifting. And again, as slowly as necessary to actually feel that guide finger shifting you, taking you safely from point A to point B. So it really is like a very, very safe train. Now you can do that with 2 and 3 as well. So your guide finger here is 2. So you go 0, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 3. Or you can do it with 3, 4, and maybe adjust the scale a little bit. Make it a diminished scale. Again, it doesn't matter so much what scale it is. We're just focusing on the movements we're trying to teach our hands. And there are other possibilities, many other possibilities to practice shifting like that. But again, it's just a little nudge to wake up our fingers and recall that feeling of what it feels to shift in a relaxed way and with confidence. Last exercise, number 6, is extensions and how we prepare extensions. So if you take 1 and 2, we want to make an extension between 1 and 2. What is the best way? So the best way is preparing almost every single extension from the center of your hand, the core of your hand, which is normally, finger 2, sometimes 3, but mostly 2. So the most natural way to extend between 2 and 1 would be to go like this, is to have this part of your hand really nice and secure and stretch out 1, as opposed to starting, down here and then stretching up 3/4 of your hand. And that not only looks a bit busier than this, but it also feels busier. I feel a lot more tension in my hand. So 90% of the time, 95% of the time, so unless I have another really good reason, my extensions are going to be prepared this way. And my exercise is as simple as this. I'm trying to keep the rest of my hand, nice and relaxed. I can maybe switch strings if I feel like it. I don't have to. I can just stay there if I wanted to. I could play rest stroke if I wanted to. Doesn't really matter too much, just alternate. A tiny bit of complexity there. You can practice your alternation, okay? Then if I want to practice 2 and 3, I would advocate for this one, this option, rather than 2 going down, because that is more tension. then 3 and 4 would be 4 stretching, as opposed to, because again, the same principle as before, you're moving 3/4 of your hand for one extension as opposed to moving 1/4 of your hand. And it just feels so much easier. If any of these are too hard, you just take them up a few frets, where the frets are closer together, and then, and again, these are just little nudges. You don't need to do them for 20 minutes, 10 minutes or anything. Just a few minutes will do. So with this, we are reaching the end of your first assignment for the first week, which would be to include each one of these 6 exercises, each one representing a crucial aspect of guitar playing, playing tirando or apoyando, then apoyando alternation across strings, these little pseudo slurs, right? They're not even real slurs, they're more basic than that, which are some of the simplest movements for the left hand, the most basic movements possible. Then chromatic scales, a bit of combination between both hands, right? And then shifting, which is super important for very beautiful musical playing. Remember, everything we do technically is ultimately at the service of a musical idea. So this one I'm particularly keen on, shifting, and how we need to avoid jumps and make sure we have some guide fingers, if we want something to sound legato. If you want something to sound staccato, you don't need it, right? Not necessarily. But if you want to play legato, then you want to develop this skill. And extensions. So much of what we do on the guitar includes some slightly awkward positions in chords. So if you were to practice each one of these for 3 minutes, that's 18 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to round it up a little bit. If you were to spend 5 minutes on each, that's 30 minutes. Perfectly acceptable for me to spend 30 minutes working on fundamental skills of guitar playing, which will really feed into everything I do that day. So I encourage you to feed these into your warm-up routine, or make them your warm-up routine for the following week. So if you practice 7 days a week, try it every single day. If you practice 5 days a week, try it each one of those 5 days. And if you have any questions, write them in the thread, send a video. I will make sure to be on the forum replying to your answers. And if not, you can keep track of your questions, and we will meet for a session, catch up on Zoom, and I hope to give you some more personalized attention. And I look forward to meeting you, seeing how you get on with these little exercises. And ultimately, I hope these can help you play the guitar in a more struggle-free, easy, in an easier fashion. So thank you so much, and I look forward to catching up with you very, very soon.